Now we have learned how to implement a full web API. Let's move on to the next step, which is creating a persistent layer. We are basically following the N-tier architecture. What I mean by that is we have done the application layer. And when we were talking about the application layer, we did a hardcore, like talking about this, storing all the information inside the list. But this time, creating a persistent layer, which means is like which helps you to take, which means retrieve or store the data onto the database, and we have done that using the Postgres. So we are creating a persistent layer, which means our application would be communicating to the database, and that communication is done through the Npgsql. Let's look into that. And before diving deep into that, I would like to talk about this another architecture, which is MVC, which stands for Model View and Controller Application. So here I have a whiteboard with me. And I have given like we have created an application and it's running on a server. So if and this is a client, we have model. I've talked about we are talking about the architecture model view controller. So I have model, I have view, I have a controller, and I have a root. Root is nothing but whatever the URL we are typing on to our browser to get access to the web server. So here we have just drawn a client. So the client actually requests it types the URL. So just a second, it's typed the URL. This URL is passed through the router and then router goes to the controller. So controller is nothing but it has all the web APIs. And then talking about the controller, it asks for the model because it needs to access the database. So model is the one who retrieves the data out of the database. So model talks to the database to get the data. Database gives the data back to the model. And after that, model sends that data to the controller. And then the controller gives the data to the view and the viewer provides the data back to the client. So this is what the MVC architecture is. Let's look into the code and let's look into the Postgres beforehand. So let's go with the Azure and let's look into the database that I created. I have created two tables. One is the map, the other one is the robot command. Robot command has two, three type of commands. One is get, other is one would be get. Then we have other is post input, and all those things in the SQL is done through the select, update, and delete. So let's log in onto our database. I have to restart my PC. There seems to be a problem, like it's not loading onto it. So I have to restart. So after restarting my PC, I am connected to the my database, which is the Postgres. So let's look into, I have these two tables that I was talking about. One is map, the other one is the robot command. So the queries which I originally written. So let's select and what kind of fields do we have. Okay, it's asking to reconnect. Let's do that. Server, local host, password, username, Postgres, password, and in here Postgres, and yeah, let's connect to it. So as you can see in the map table, I have ID, I have columns and rows spelled incorrect. I have isCare, description, created date and modified date. And in the robot command, just a second. In the robot command, I have ID, name, description, is moved, created date, and modified date. And these were the command that I used originally in order to create this table. So create command, making it public because I want to access this completely. And then I have the robot table name. Then I have given the data type in here. I've kept the description null and other things not to be null. And then I've inserted all those things. Instead of doing that, all the hard code inside the code, I have created the database onto the Postgres, and we are going to access that using the npgsql. So let's look into our code and how all this implementation is done. And let's open our Postgres side by side. So we originally had this robot command.css. So it's similar than earlier. Nothing is being changed. So what I mean by that is modal class remains same because the things which were earlier over there are still there. And the same happens with the m.cs file. It has the same thing. Now we did something in the robot command controller because now we are not directly accessing our list and all. So to get all those lists, we have created another file called robot command data access. And in that, we have assigned the SQL queries. So let's look into that file and then coming back to this original file and what kind of changes were made in order to incorporate this Postgres into our code. So we are using this library npgsql and then the namespace because I want the information to be at particular space, not scatter all around, making the code easier to debug. Then I have this class called robot command data access, and all this class is static, so I don't have to create an instance. And then I have this connection string. Now I have given all the things in here. That's not a good practice. You don't want to give your passwords and all those things to the user, whoever is using your website. So you could have those things inside in the app settings.json. I wanted to make my code much more simpler, so I've just written it, but it's not a good practice. So whenever you are writing the code, do it in the app setting.json. And after assigning all those values into one particular string, connection string, I have created a list. So the list is empty currently. While that is empty, let's look into that. Then I have created the connection with the PostgreSQL database, and that connection is done through the npgsql connections. So it helps to connect the application to the Postgres, and it is passing the parameter called connection string. So all those credentials are passed onto this, and a new connection is generated. Then dot open, which means if the connection something happens, if the connection closes automatically and throws an exception or something like that. Then the next thing is done. We have created a query. So many of my uh, many of you might be familiar with like select query. So what I've done is selected everything from the table, and which table I'm talking about? I'm talking about the table robot command. And then we are reading all those things. So what this command is going to give, it is going to give all the commands inside the robot command, and it will be giving us all the values that are stored onto it. And then we are where from whatever field we are reading. So what we are reading, we have the ID, we are reading it, and what was the index value? So ID was at the front, so the index value starts from 0 and goes increment as that. So the index for the ID would be 0, name would be 1, description again 2, and it could be null. So if you are not storing, like whenever you want to post something onto the database and you are using the post command, and if you don't write the description, it won't throw an error because it's null. Then we have is move command. So it is at 3, created at 4, modified at 4. Then what we are doing, we are creating an object of all those things. Then after that, what we have done, We created an object and stored all those information inside what list? The list we created earlier. So instead of doing the hardcore, it is taking out the information from the database. And after that, it is returning us the robot commands. Now looking on to the add robot command, which would be our post in the Postman, and the earlier which we discussed would be our get command. Get method, basically get request, if you would say. Then we are taking the parameter because in order to post something, we need to set some values inside the body and then the JSON part. And in order to do that, we are again establishing a connection. The creating, we have opened that connection. We are assigning the query. So we are doing insert, which I showed you earlier in the Postgres. So in order to insert something onto your table, you have to write insert into the table and name of those fields and then values. So in our, I could have written all those value in here, but then if somebody would be able to manipulate those values and we wouldn't have any control. And those kind of attacks are called SQL injection. So all those things are mentioned. If someone writes something wrong in here, it will send an exception. But if someone writes select all the queries which shouldn't be visible to them, and they could manipulate the data if it was given directly to them. The particular command was given access to them directly. So, in order to get the access onto it, they have to write the things in a particular field. So, if they write something different, which isn't the part of that field, it will throw an exception. Then we are reading all those. Then we have the update. Update is nothing but the put command. It is similar to we are establishing a connection, then we are writing a query and then adding those things and it checks like if the row was affected or not. Then we have delete. We establish the connection, we're writing the SQL query and then checking was it disturbed or not. Same happens in the map data access class. So I have blurred the password in here because I don't want to share it on the video. And then after that, we again created this get map if we are sending the get request. It will access our database and helps us to select every field from the map and the values stored inside of it. And same happens with the update. Instead of getting the information, we are actually posting the information. In the update part, we are actually using the put command. And then we have delete and we have add. So add would be, in order to do the add, we have to send the post request using the Postman. And what kind of changes were done onto the robot command controller? So earlier, we were just accessing those things from the model class. Now, what we need to do is access all those things, return all those values from the robot command data access. And what kind of thing are we getting when we are talking about the get command? So, method which we created earlier was get robot commands. In case of the post, we are accessing our add robot command. And in case of our put, we are taking a parameter ID. Then what kind of method we were accessing? We were accessing update robot command. And in case of delete, we were accessing the delete robot command from robot command data access. And same was done to our map controller.cs. So in this case, get, we are accessing the get map method from the map data access file. And again, here add, this will be working with the post, the put will be update map, and delete would be delete map method created inside. Now let's run our code. And now, before running the code, I need to make changes. I had to put my password in there. Okay, just a second. Password. So let me pause the video. So I've entered the password and we got the local host this and the root. The base root is API slash robot commands. Let's get the information out of it. And as you can see, all those information are taken out from the Postgres. Isn't it cool? So let's do a post one. And let me copy it so that I don't have to write it again and again. Let's copy it. Let's go with post and body. Okay, and then the raw file, which is the JSON. And let's change. So we had 14 earlier. Let's go with 15 and like side jump. Robot will jump. And this information needs to be in quotation mark. Earlier it was set to null. No, it's not giving the error anymore. Copying it and sending it. So it is created and let's see whether we are getting the information. So 15 jumps, robot will jump and let's go with put and then delete. So put, I wanted to delete the one which we just created. Sorry, modified. So let's modify it to say no jumping. Global will not jump. And let's just send the request. It has created. Let's get the information out of it. And the 15 should say no jumping. Robot will not jump. Let's delete the one that we created. So let's delete the one that we created. And let's get the information whether we are actually getting it or not. I have to remove that parameter. And as you can see, no more 15. Let's do the same for the map one. So let's go to the map controller and what is the base root? It is maps. Let's get all the information what we have. So we have 6. Let's look into our database whether we actually have 6 or not. Okay. As you can see, we have 6 and see whether our database was effective. So it also has 14. Let's do one more thing. Let's delete this 14 and you can see that it is actually working. Let's go to our Postman. Just write delete. It was over commands. And we were deleting the 14th one. Let's delete it. So it has deleted it and let's just run it again and see whether the 14 command is deleted or not. So yes, now you can see the ID is 13 and 14th ID is no more over there. Now let's do the same in the map table. Let me open the Visual Code. So we have base root to be as robot now. Okay, we just have map. Let's get the information out of it. So we got the information and it says we have 6 different IDs in here. Let's just change it for the post. So let's create a seventh one and say the size to be 500. Go with 500 and same. Let's post it. So we were able to post it. Now let's get the information back whether we have 7 or 6. So we have 7. So it's implemented properly. Now let's update the value and that is done using the post. So let's post it and post. We need to let's just update the seventh one and say instead of 500, let's go with 1000. Just put it. Okay, just a second. So I saw the problem. It needs to be static. Let's do it once again. Okay, we had to run it once again. And hopefully we will be able to change it. Yeah, so don't forget to write static. And let's delete the same one. Okay, let's just check it. One, as you can see, it has changed it, shown. And let's go with the delete one. And let's delete the seventh one. And let's just delete a sixth one for our sake, like to see that whether something was done to our Postgres or not. So let's delete the sixth one. And let's go to our Postgres and just run it again. And as you can see, there is no sixth ID. So thanks for watching the video.